Greetings, everyone. Dr. Brian Scott with you. We're starting another week here of Insights to End Times. We're looking at God's timetable and where we are in God's timetable. In the world, they say we're at 90 seconds to midnight on the doomsday clock. Well, we can look at scriptures and we can see a lot of scriptures that show us where we are on God's timetable. And we are getting closer and closer to the very end. And we'll be sharing with you what's going to occur as we get closer to that. But one of the things that is coming towards the end is the 7 years of tribulation that the book of Revelation describes in great detail. And I can assure you, you do not want to be living on the earth during that time frame. It's not going to be a pretty sight whatsoever. And that's why we're trying to bring to you some of these podcasts with information as to where we are on the timetable and what we should do to get ourselves ready for what God's going to do for us. I am in 2 Timothy chapter 3. I'm looking at the symptoms or the signs that point to these perilous times that Paul described in the first verse of 2 Timothy 3. We're looking at point number 12, symptom or sign number 12. All last week we looked at this one. That's because there's so much that pertains to it. It's called incontinent or lack of control. It means people living without restraint, without boundaries, without limits. We looked at 3 areas last week. We looked at eating, food, obesity, and so on. Staggering statistics. We looked at the second point was spending. That's so far out of control that it can't even be described. You can't even imagine what it means. We looked at the emotional realm. And in that realm, we saw where unruly, uncivil type behavior is becoming the norm in every area of life. It's out of control. And today we're looking at addictions, addictive behavior. We're talking in our last session last week about alcoholism, the fact that there are 300 million people around the world who are considered to be alcoholics. In the United States, about 15 million people are considered to be alcoholics. We also found that drinking starts in a lot of children, teenagers from the ages of 12 to 17, and it becomes a habitual thing. Let's talk about drugs for just a few minutes, and there's so much to talk about, we're not going to be able to cover all of it. But more than 50% of American people misuse their prescription drugs. That's a bad statistic. You probably didn't even think of it before. But they're addicted to stimulants, to depressants, to analgesics, many of which are totally illegal. Now, we could look at the fact that drug overdoses in the United States as a illustration or example have tripled over the last 20 years or last 30 years even. The addictions, alcoholic and drugs, cost the U.S. health system about $600 billion a year to deal with. Wow. It's unbelievable. But these addictions, these drugs that we're talking about, the illegal drugs, at least at this point, such as heroin or cocaine or marijuana, methamphetamines, and hallucinogenics, hey, the numbers are staggering, absolutely staggering. I'll just give you a couple statistics because there's pages and pages of statistics, but the point is well taken. It's out of control. There's no restraint. It's self-embellishment, et cetera, et cetera. But here's some statistics dealing with marijuana, which is being legalized more and more. In 2017, between 30 and 40 million Americans were smoking marijuana on a regular basis. Here's what staggers me. 1.2 million 12 to 17-year-olds had tried marijuana for the first time. In 2018, listen to these statistics. In 2018, 13% of all 8th graders, 13% of all 8th graders had tried marijuana, or they were using it at least once a year. Now, an 8th grader normally is in the vicinity of 13, 14 years of age. Well, 10th graders, 27% of 10th graders. That's more than 1 in 4 10th graders. You're talking about a 15-year-old, roughly speaking. And then when we talk about 12th graders, 35%, 1 in 3, were smoking marijuana at least once a year. These situations become worse as they get older. But the fact that they try it for the first time so young is a real issue. Overall, we're living in a world without restraint. It's probably one of the worst symptoms in this perilous time study that we're doing, because it is so widespread and it's so accepted and it's become normalized, and we don't even think about it anymore. It hits us in food, in spending, in behavior, emotional behavior, uncivil behavior, and addictive activities. And I've just looked at alcohol and drugs. There's so many other addictions, pornography, etc., etc. It just goes on and on. We're in the last days, really close to the end. I look forward to seeing you as we continue this week. God, you're blessed. Amen.